When Pope Francis became the leader of the Catholic Church on Wednesday, people around the world were asking, what happens now? Can he restore confidence to a church struggling amid scandal to keep its flock? To understand just how troubled the church he's inheriting is, look no further than the power struggle going on between the Vatican and some of its most popular disciples, American nuns. The Vatican launched what some Catholics call a new inquisition when it accused the official group that represents most nuns in the United States of undermining the church. The crackdown last year on the Leadership Conference of Women Religious has sparked outrage, creating yet another rift between those who want the church to reform and those who do not.
The story will continue in a moment.
The new Pope of the Roman Catholic Church took his name from Francis of Assisi, the humble saint who inspired orders of priests and nuns devoted to the poor. And when he stood on that balcony in Rome, few could have been watching him more carefully than the nuns there in St. Peter's Square and in the United States. In his native Argentina, he showed compassion to the people, but also urged Catholic sisters there to promote conservative social values, very much like what the Vatican has been doing in the United States. That's drawn a lot of attention to sisters like Pat Farrell, who leads the group that represents 80% of American nuns.
You became a nun, I would imagine, for a life of prayer and contemplation and good works.
That's correct.
And all of a sudden, you've become a rock star.
It's very strange. It's a very strange position to be in.
Are you enjoying it?
No. I'm not someone who prefers to be in the limelight, truthfully.
She was thrust into the limelight last year when the Vatican accused her group of insubordination. After a 3-year investigation, it rebuked the sisters for undermining the church by publicly disagreeing with the bishops.
We weren't looking for this controversy.
And by not vigorously promoting the church's positions on issues like same-sex marriage and male-only priesthood.
When you heard that phrase, undermine the church, were you surprised?
Absolutely, because the experience we have of ourselves is trying our best to stand in the middle of very complex situations and issues and to respond in a way that offers hope to people.
Sister Pat spent 2 decades in El Salvador, ministering to victims of the war, working in the shadows like sisters everywhere, caring for the sick, as we saw in this inner-city clinic, counseling women struggling with addiction,
with liberty and justice for all,
and teaching generations of needy children in schools like the Sisters Academy in Baltimore. But the Vatican says good works aren't the issue. It's annual meetings like these that the group holds for its members, where sisters have given speeches promoting what the Vatican calls radical feminist themes that are, quote, incompatible with the Catholic faith.
The Church itself continues to live by patriarchal values that, by any objective measure, relegate women to second-class status.
Centuries ago, that kind of challenge could have been considered heresy. It's hard to imagine that wasn't on Pat Farrell's mind when she traveled to Rome last year. She met with the enforcers of church orthodoxy who ordered the investigation that found her group had undermined the church, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith.
This is the same group, is it not, that ran the Inquisition?
It's the same office, under a different name, that's right.
What was your reaction, your visceral reaction, when you heard that you were being accused of radical feminism?
It reflects to me fear.
What are they afraid of?
I don't know, but it feels to me like fear. What would happen if women really were given a place of equality in the church?
She says sisters want a place at the table in their parishes and in the church hierarchy. In the past, Her group has gone on the record supporting the ordination of women as priests, a topic so taboo, the Church says it's not even up for discussion.
You did take a vow of obedience, didn't you?
Absolutely.
If you'll permit me, sister, it doesn't sound like you're being terribly obedient right now.
Well, I think there is one of the areas of misunderstanding and difference. Our first obedience is to God. What we obey is God and God's call to us as expressed in so many different sources. It's not just the teaching authority of the Church, although that certainly is a legitimate part of it.
Would it be distorting your position to say that you just don't want the men to tell you what to do anymore?
We have never wanted the men to tell us what to do.
But the Vatican was so alarmed by what it saw that it called the situation a crisis. And last year, the Archbishop of Seattle, Peter Sarton, was appointed to take command of the nuns group and bring them into compliance.
It doesn't make sense that a conference of women religious who would want to give a platform to somebody who would espouse ideas antithetical to what the Church teaches.
I can understand that it's problematic for the Church.
Sure.
But you've called it a crisis. A bit hyperbolic?
I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because there comes to be a point at which we have to get a handle on this so that it doesn't continue to evolve into something much more problematic.
Not that the Church didn't already have enough problems on its hands. The administration of Pope Benedict was under siege for not being tough enough on priests accused of sexual abuse.
You don't think that the timing is a bit off, that when the Church is still really under condemnation for the pedophile scandal and the cover-up, that it brings up another issue which is very contentious?
The Church is dealing at the same time always with the variety of issues. This issue, although it's of a different nature in terms of its importance for the Church and for the future of religious life in the Church, is one that needed attention now also.
Pope Benedict gave the Archbishop the power to review the sisters' publications, programs, and speakers.
Will you have veto power?
Ultimately, I would.
But in the 21st century in the United States, censorship is a very, very dirty word.
I understand that. And yet in the context of the Church, we're always going to have the concern about being faithful to Christ. And all I can say to you, Bob, is I don't have any doubt about the reason why the Holy Father has asked me to do this, which is his genuine love and concern for religious women.
Archbishop, the sisters in the organization say that they do not feel that love coming from the Vatican right now. They feel something quite different from love. What they're hearing is obey.
I understand, and they have said that to me as well.
Now this is lunch, I'm assuming, that we are doing preparation for.
And they're being heard by American nuns everywhere who are sticking with their sisters.
I got some special snacks for today. Yeah, not a lot, but enough to keep us going.
We met Sister Judy Park, one of a handful of nuns
Good morning.
who work at the soup kitchen in a down-and-out section of Brooklyn. She says the people who matter to her, the people who strengthen her, are the people she serves.
People have said to us, you taught us how to pray. You taught us how to read. You stood by my bedside when I was sick. You were the one who was never ashamed to be with me. And now I'm surprised that this is happening to you. Clarence!
Isn't the Vatican's point that you should be emphasizing the role of the Church and what people should be doing and what's right and what's wrong instead of just serving soup?
My role is not to judge. My role is to accompany. And I think the reason people do trust us is that we don't judge.
Catholics and non-Catholics from all over the country have swarmed out in their support. The sisters' resistance has developed into a populist movement, complete with rallies, prayer meetings, and, yes, even their own national roadshow featuring slogans and groupies. Sister Simone Campbell is the driving force behind Nuns on the Bus, a movement she launched after her group of Catholic social activists, called Network, was singled out in the Vatican's investigation. Sister Simone was given a starring role at the Democratic National Convention last year.
We have nuns on the bus and a nun on the podium.
After she campaigned for President Obama's health care law, which the U.S. bishops opposed out of fear it would cover abortion. While her group doesn't promote or condone abortion rights, it does advocate for universal health care.
Why did you embrace health care when the bishops were against it?
Well, because I read the bill. I mean, the fact is, I'm a lawyer. I read the bill. I saw what it said. It made sense. I could see that it said no federal funding of abortion, which was what the bishop's staff was concerned about.
She rallied sisters to the health care cause, publishing a letter of support that was signed by dozens of nuns.
One of the sisters who signed our letter said, "Oh, Simone, don't worry about this. The boys played the girls, and for once the girls won, and the boys are upset."
Isn't that what it's all about?
Well, it's way more politics and culture than it is faith. I mean, we're a staff of 9 full-time people, and we make the Vatican nervous? I mean, give me a break.
Archbishop Peter Sarton says the Vatican's crackdown had nothing to do with politics, at least not over health care. But the Catholic Church in the United States is fighting an uphill battle against other hot-button issues like same-sex marriage, contraception, and abortion, and it criticized the group of American nuns for not joining the struggle.
You just remain silent on these issues.
Well, yes and no. While we haven't made a lot of public statements on abortion, we have certainly spoken on right-to-life issues with our lives, with our commitments. We certainly defend the sacredness of life.
Do you think that the Church's rigidity on these issues is one of the reasons why so many Catholics are leaving the Church?
There doesn't seem to be a safe place to talk about issues of difference. Where do people go? They're struggling in a divided church. They're wondering where to go with some of their honest questions.
She says she's hopeful Pope Francis will begin to close that divide and create more openness in the Church. He has been an advocate for the poor, just like the sisters, and has already signaled changes in Rome. But nobody knows how he will handle the standoff with American nuns. Archbishop Sarton was given 5 years to get his job done and has begun what both sides call a dialogue.
If dialogue means that the goal is to change the teaching of the Church, then that's not what we're about. If it's about a dialogue which leads to a better understanding of the Church's teaching, that kind of dialogue, I think, has already begun in many ways.
You have devoted your life to helping the poor and the underprivileged, devoted your life to prayer and to faith and to following the Gospels. Why can't you do this without the Church?
I think it's because I am church that I have been doing those things. I have no interest in being separate from the Church. It's who I am.